Hey everybody, welcome to Get to Know Your Wedding Pro. My name is Reed with Best Made Videos. We are a wedding videography company based out of West Seattle, Washington, and I'm joined today by one of my longtime friends here, Markie Jones of Markie Jones Photography. I want to thank you so much for coming in today during kind of the holiday season, and I know it's busy with kids and families and other commitments, so I want to really appreciate, thank you for coming in. Why don't you introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about who you are and what you do?
Awesome. Thanks, Reed. So I'm Markie, and you'll find me on Facebook as Markie Stein Jones because I just got married, but I have not done all that paperwork to try and change my last name because it's a lot. I am primarily a wedding and boudoir photographer. I currently have a studio space down in Sumner, Washington. It's actually really cute above Salon Rue, and you can find me there most of the time. If I'm not there, I'm probably at my house because I work from home as well. What was the rest of the question? Sorry.
Yeah, so you do primarily weddings and boudoir.
Yes.
You live down in Sumner. You enjoy kind of living a little bit out of the city, right? Talk about that.
Oh, yeah. I absolutely love living a little bit out of the city. I actually was born in Puyallup and raised over in Bonnie Lake, and I currently live about 150 feet from my childhood home. So I bought the lot 2 doors down from my parents and put my own house on it. It's actually really kind of funny. We've lived out there for so long, and my absolute favorite thing anytime I leave Bonnie Lake is coming back to Bonnie Lake, because as you come up over Eli Hill and dip down near the Walmart, there's a beautiful view of the mountain when you can see it, when it's not cloudy. But it's absolutely gorgeous. It's kind of that big, like, welcome home as you come into to Bonnie Lake. So that's really cool. And it's nice because I'm not like, it's still busy around there, but it's not Seattle busy.
Yeah, it's funny. My wife's good friend moved down to one of those new developments, kind of the Tahalia. I never know. I literally never know how to pronounce it. But every time we go down there, she's always like, oh my God, because the mountain is like right in your face.
Yeah.
And so it's just so funny. I'm like, well, no, I mean, there is a reason why like people choose to live down here and have the beauty and the scenery. And, she's like West Seattle till she dies. So we're kind of stuck here. But yes, I definitely understand. And she gets kind of the draw for that. Talk about, that's fascinating, kind of moving in next to your childhood home. Tell me about kind of that thought process.
So funny story. This will tell you about small town life for sure. Not only do I live 150 feet from my childhood home, but I also married the son of my mom's best friend. So all of my kids' grandparents went to school together, and now we've kind of like just joined 2 huge portions of the community together. So it's one of those we're sitting there and it's like, oh, this is small town living at its finest. It's not as small as Linesville, Pennsylvania, where my dad's from, but yeah, it's actually, I mean, living right next door to my parents is both a blessing and a curse. It's great because they're there all the time. My kids always get to see their grandparents. It's literally a phone call away. And I said before my husband and I got together and he moved in, there were so many nights where it's like, I'm calling down the street. Can somebody come sit here? I have to take one of the kids to the emergency room, or I have to run to the store for milk. Can someone come down and hang out? But then the downside of it is having them so close. Every kid goes through that I'm going to run away stage. And so my kids will literally, they're like, I don't want to live with you anymore. I'm going to run away. And 5 minutes later, I get a phone call from my mom. So you know that Emmy and Gracie are down here, right? It's like, yeah, no, they ran away from home. Just turn them around, send them right back.
That's awesome. Yeah. And you were talking, even just with Christmas and everything, how you said you kind of just have like this open door kind of wandering in and out policy where, obviously like where you're so ingrained in the community or whatever there, and you have everybody so near, right?
Yeah. Having all of the grandparents so close by. I mean, my parents are 2 doors down. My husband's dad and stepmom are about 8 minutes away. They're on the other side of Bonnie Lake, which is 8 minutes away. And then his mom and her boyfriend live right in downtown Sumner. So I said everybody's within 20 minutes of each other. I think the ones who travel farthest are my grandma, who comes from Puyallup, and my brother and sister-in-law who come from Gig Harbor. So, but everybody gets to come over, and it's just kind of bring what you want. Feel free. Like, I think my stepmom or my husband's stepmom brought cinnamon rolls. She went and bought a big Cinnabon pack of cinnamon rolls. My mom made 2 different, oh my goodness, like these hash brown things with eggs and all kinds of good stuff in them. And what else was there? Oh yeah, my sister-in-law brought over sausage, and like we had this huge smorgasbord of food. And I mean, my fridge, I have 2 fridges in my house, which is what sold me on the house plan that I bought. And both of them are still full. And here we are. This is like 2 days later. We've been eating for 2 days.
So, but needless to say, you guys had a good holiday. The kids got fed, and toys were opened, and everybody had a good time.
Oh, yes. And there's a karaoke machine now. And that, I mean, if you have not heard Baby Shark on a karaoke machine, you're missing out. And of course, my kids cannot just stick with Baby Shark. It's been Baby Shark and Baby Bear and Baby Turtle, and it's all to the same tune. So.
Is that do?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, Dorothy's a teacher, so we hear that from time to time. Yeah, I was gonna say we don't have kids yet. I don't even know like what the hot toys are right now that kids are looking for.
It's so hard to keep up. Like, I could not even figure it out this year. I was like, I don't know. Here's some hatchy baby thing. Is this cool? My 8-year-old, she's like 5 minutes in. She's like, okay, it's hatched now. I'm done.
Yeah.
She's like, can I play the PlayStation? Okay.
That's awesome. Well, thank you again for coming in. Why don't we talk a little bit about why we're here? Photography. Have you always kind of wanted to be a photographer? How did you kind of get into that?
No, I actually have my mom and my ex-husband to thank for my photography career. That's the only thing you'll hear me thank my ex-husband for. But yeah. So it actually happened. I was failing out of college pretty badly. I went from being a honors roll high school student to, I think I had a D- in college. It was pretty bad. It was low enough that it was kind of a turning point where I'm like, I either have to quit or I have to do something else. And so my mom was flipping through the course catalog. She's like, oh, they have photography classes. That's easy. You can bring your grade up. She's like, I already have a camera that you can use. And so she hands me a Pentax K1000, old film camera that it's like, I mean, you had to do everything manually. And I still almost failed out of college. But that was because I was spending all my time in the darkroom, because this was film photography. We had light tables. You literally had to lock yourself in a completely sealed dark room in order to develop this film. And being someone who, as a child, I was afraid of the dark. I hated the dark. So I'm walking into this dark room, and I'm in the back of my mind, I'm going, is there somebody who snuck in here who's going to murder me while I'm standing here? Is somebody else going to show up and just find me like in pieces in this little tiny room? Overactive imagination. Like, I still have an overactive imagination, but it helps though. It helps me. And so I ended up, I passed college with like a C-. So I think I was 3 points above what the minimum was to graduate. So I ended up graduating, and my ex-husband moved me to California, where I knew nobody. And so I had no friends down there. I wasn't great at making friends. I was not as bubbly as I am now. And so he decided I was going to be the sports photographer for this Pop Warner football team that he coached. And he handed me it was a Canon XS or something. One of the very first Canon Rebel cameras. It had like 4 megapixels and a kit lens, which was like the 20 to 300 or something. It was something ridiculous. And he sticks me out on a football field to photograph football games. Which,
sports photography is hard.
It's like, you have to keep paying attention. Yeah. And even when you're paying attention, unless you're like holding that shutter button down all the time, you still miss things. And you're like, oh, that would have been really cool. And so, yeah, I spent most of my nights sitting there and computers were not as fast 12 years ago as they are now. So I'm sitting there one photo at a time, trying to just find that one photo that would make the team go, oh yeah, that was what we wanted. So it was a lot of work at that point. And then one day I was over just kind of, screwing around, doing my own thing. And I was photographing the players as they were just kind of huddled around. And so they were spaced just perfectly. I could do like portraits of them. So I was doing these kind of like this portrait trial type thing. And one of the moms saw it and then hired me to photograph their Christmas cards for $35. Which in California, we lived right outside of San Francisco. So, $35 might have paid for my gas to get there in stop and go traffic. But she paid me. She absolutely loved the photos. And from there, I started getting more requests. And I actually started my business in Washington while I was still living in California because I was living up here half time. At the time I had lost my job, I was pregnant. And so my ex-husband he was flying me home because I was lonely. He's like, go home, see your family. So I actually started working up here while I was still living in Northern California.
So it's always been kind of established in Washington, then you didn't have to make that whole transition.
No, I never had to make that transition. I actually only photographed like 3 sessions in California ever. And it was just like, and one of those was in 2016. It was actually a wedding that I was flown back to California after living up here for 4 years. They flew me back down to shoot their wedding. Oh,
that's awesome. Yeah, it's funny. Just speaking of the sports photography, when I was doing news in Bakersfield, we would do high school football was like huge in Bakersfield.
Yeah.
It's like small town. And so we would do Friday night FFX, like Friday Night Football Extra. And that would be like our sports guy, Todd, would put together. And so they'd send all the videographers had to work, no matter if you were working Fridays or not, you had to work Friday night. And they'd send you out to whatever you drive 2 hours out to Tehachapi or whatever to get the football games. And like you said, it's really hard. So like you would go out there and you would just have to shoot enough to get like a highlight and then get back, because you had to bring it back to the station. Like we didn't have, nowadays you have like live streams and stuff and you can, beam stuff across. And so like you go and like if you missed that one play, like you were totally SOL because you couldn't wait around. And so you're like, man, I might be sitting there for 45 minutes waiting for a touchdown. And if I miss that pass and you're like, oh, you're like swinging the camera around.
Right. I don't think I could do videography. Everybody'd be like, I have no idea what's going on. It's all blurry. Like you're flipping the camera back and forth, trying to keep a track of everything.
So when you started in Washington, had you ever kind of really thought about like starting the business before? Was this new? Did you have like a family history of any of this stuff?
No. So actually what ended up happening is my dad owns his own business and my brother was in the process of starting a graphic design business as well. And so my dad basically came to us and he said, here's the deal. I will give you $1,500 to put into your business however you wish. However, you have to get your Washington business license. And it was like, oh, okay. He's like, you have to become a legal business. You have to be filing taxes. Otherwise, you're going to have to pay me this whole $1,500 back, which, at the time was 2010. So I was 25, 24. And I'm going, $1,500 was a lot of money to me at that point. I was just like, what? And now I'm sitting here, I'm like, oh, $1,500, that was the last lens I bought. So I was super excited. I got this money. I went through, I bought Photoshop. I bought a new camera. I got my business license. And then I just kind of expected that, everything was just going to take off, right? I just put $1,500 into my business. It was going to just take off and it was going to start without me. It didn't work that way. It was a lot of hard lessons and everything else. And then I ended up getting divorced in the middle of all of that and kind of put photography on the back burner. I still shot 1 to 2 weddings a year. I still did portraits for friends and family, but I wasn't actively like putting myself out there. And so in 2016, that was when I kind of went, okay, I went through what I call Hell Week. My now ex-boyfriend had bought me a puppy for my birthday because, you know, that's a great gift to give anybody as a puppy. Without a commitment, please don't ever bring me a puppy. So he brings me this puppy, and on Sunday night of that week, I get a phone call from my mom that my grandpa's been taken to the hospital. Monday, he goes into a coma and they put him on the ventilator. Tuesday, we wake up and this puppy is just sicker than sick. And I worked in veterinary medicine for a couple of years, and I'm looking at it and I'm like, oh, great. It's got parvo. Like, I can smell it. They get this particular.
What is? I don't know what that is.
Parvo is kind of like the human flu,
okay,
but it's only in dogs. And it's very deadly to like small puppies and older animals because it dehydrates them because they get super sick. So, but it's got this funky smell to it. And so I'm sitting there, I'm like, oh, great. My puppy has parvo now. So Tuesday, I run the puppy to the emergency vet, who then proceeds to tell me that they have no hope for the puppy. The puppy is too young. It's not going to survive. And I'm looking at him going, here's my credit card. Do what you can. And I'll be back tomorrow. Wednesday, my grandpa's pulled off the ventilator and dies. Thursday morning, I get up to find that the boyfriend who bought me the puppy has packed all of his stuff and walked out before anybody ever got out of bed. So by Friday, I am a complete zombie. I go back down to the animal hospital where the poor puppy is just kind of laying in the cage. And I'm like, are you even like going in and paying attention to him? And they're going, well, we're very busy today. And so I walk over and I tap on the glass because he's in isolation. And he jumps up and is bouncing all over his little cage in there. His IV comes flying out of his paw because he's just going wild. And I'm going, not getting better, huh? I'm going to take him to my regular vet today. So move the puppy to the regular vet, and the puppy came home. This was the bright spot. In like 48 hours, the puppy was back at home. So after that, I was kind of sitting here going, I need something to pour myself into. This has just drained everything out of me. I need to pour myself into something. So I started really focusing on my business because I went, you know, with the fact that my grandpa had just died, I realized how little time I had at home with my kids and with my family. And I was working 9 to 5. I didn't get to see them all the time and everything else. So I started pouring myself into photography. And in 2016, I think I shot 14 weddings between May of 2016 and the end of the year. Basically, any wedding I could take, anything that somebody would have me second shoot on, I was there. I was doing all of this. And so 2017, I did the same thing. And then this past year, I said, I think we had 14 weddings this past year. So, and now I'm moving into 2019 with 5 weddings on the books already. And I have a boudoir business that I get people that come in there that I'm like, oh, you want to come do this? Is exciting. Like, I'm super stoked for some of the clients that I have coming up.
Yeah, talk about kind of, at least to me, and I wasn't in kind of the weddings and photography world for a long time, but it does seem to me that like the boudoir thing is really kind of like coming up, and whether it's like male boudoir or female or couples or kind of like, but it really does seem like it's like a thing now that it wasn't. Is that true? Am I wrong in that thing? Has it always been there? No, I think it's always kind of been there, but it hasn't been as prevalent as it is now. For a long time there, it was super taboo. These women were going and they were taking their clothes off for somebody else, essentially. And then you're getting these photos printed and people are seeing you naked. And this was a huge taboo thing. But a lot of the huge amount of feminism and stuff that has become prevalent, it's really at the forefront right now. That's actually empowered a lot of women to go, hey, I can go do this and feel good about myself. I don't have to feel like, oh, I have to cover up all the time. And then the fact that, I mean, it's not like these women are going through and
taking these photos and putting them on giant billboards for the whole world to see. I said, I kind of get the feeling that that's what a lot of people think it is that you're just going to go through and you're going to take these photos and you're going to put them on a giant billboard. And that's not what you're doing. There are some women who, I actually did have a client who ordered a giant, like 20 by 30 for her room. And I said, hey, more power to you. If I didn't have kids that would, bring everybody and their brother into my bedroom and go, hey, look, that's my mom, I'd probably do the same thing. But my kids will literally, it does not matter who you are. They will like bring you in and they'll be like, hey, look what I found in my mom's room. And it's like, I did not want everybody to know about that. So I really think it's become a lot more prevalent. It's a lot more at the forefront. And then now we've got the guys doing it too. And I said, what used to be strictly an Abercrombie and Fitch type of deal, now it's like everybody can come do it. It doesn't have to be, you don't have to be some supermodel to get out there and to actually love your body and enjoy yourself and think about the fact that it's like, how far has it brought you?
It's funny. Yeah. If like, cause a lot of between you and other people I have like on my Instagram with like weddings and stuff, like I get a lot of like boudoir stuff that like shows up. Like if you didn't know and you just picked up my phone, you'd be like, man, like what is this guy looking at? But it's a lot, but I mean, I do think it's like, I think it's awesome. And I think like, even from just an artistic thing, I mean, I'm not, it's like, I get, like, a lot of brides give it to their grooms and, as gifts and stuff. And so like, I get it, but I'm just looking at like, even just like as an artistic thing. And I'm like, this is really neat. Like, it's really kind of cool with like, lots of different uses of like lighting and shading and like environments and stuff, right? Does it kind of give you a chance to kind of experiment a little more than you would at a wedding?
A little bit. Yeah. I actually tend to go through, I'm in a couple of groups where it's like we share ideas and we go, okay, this is how I did this type of thing. So I'll go through and have an idea in my head and I kind of have the way that it needs to be executed figured out before the session, but it does give a lot more time to kind of go, okay, well here, we're going to try this. And then every client's different. I had a client walk in here a month and a half ago that I said, the first thing out of her mouth was, okay, can I get naked now? And I'm going, wait, but we missed all of these other shots that I was going to do for you. And I'm like, well, yeah, we can start there. Let's just, and so sometimes your clients really, they'll throw a wrench into everything and you're going, wait, I'm not, I have to take a second to catch up here. But yeah, I mean, they're super excited. And my new studio actually has this old fancy clawfoot tub. So I have like 3 clients. They're like, can we do bubble baths? I'm going, oh yeah, we can.
Well, it could be too like a nervous thing. Like maybe they're just like, they just want to get in. It's like a Band-Aid, right? Like you rip it and then you can kind of feel a little more free, right? Yeah.
I have a couple of clients that it's like, that's kind of their thing. They're like, just rip the Band-Aid off. Let's just get in there and do it. And I always joke around with them. I'm like, hey, if it makes you feel better, I can get naked too. Could not be the first time I photographed somebody naked, okay?
Just kind of being able to do these more intimate sessions. And I think you really, it's a lot more on, the photographer, whether it's a male or female photographer, you really have to be comfortable, with really good with clients. Cause like I've worked with photographers that are like really good technically, but are like terrible in terms of like, dealing with. And so do you think that really kind of like helps you refine that skill then of getting, and that you can relate that to like weddings or portraits or anything else, kind of that client photographer relationship? Yeah.
I said doing these intimate photo sessions has actually taught me a lot more about myself versus teaching me about the clients. It's really gotten to the point where I've had to totally just open up. And for a long time, I was a very, very closed off person. I didn't want to get close to anybody. I didn't want to have that opportunity to, have any damage there. That was like, I was avoiding it. And a lot of that came from, being divorced and kind of being isolated from family and friends and stuff. So, but I found that my sessions that come in where the clients are super, super quiet and they're just kind of like, they're not loosening up. Those are the hardest ones for me because I'm sitting there and I'm really having to pull something out of them in order to do it, I have to really pull out all of my terrible jokes in order to kind of get them to go, hey, look, she's totally real. I'm not one of those super creepo. Although I do joke around with my girls. I'm like, if anybody else ever growled at you like I'm about to growl at you, you'd probably be filing a harassment suit. But I've found that taking that filter, the filter that tells you, oh, you really shouldn't say that, and turning it off really actually helps during sessions, because these girls come in and they expect you to, not only make them look absolutely beautiful, but they're trusting you with the fact that it's like, here they are, they're almost completely unclothed. And you just they're trusting that you're not going to basically go through and rip them apart. And so I'll sit there. My favorite joke is, I'm like a gremlin, don't get me wet. And that actually stemmed from somebody telling me that I was super sick during the session, and I had kind of that gargly, I sounded like a 60-year-old smoker. And I was sitting there and I'm like, oh yeah, baby. And so she's like, you sound like a troll. And I'm cracking up laughing. I'm like, oh yeah, I'm like a gremlin, don't get me wet. Well, I'll start most of the sessions telling that joke, and the girls just crack up laughing. They're like, oh my gosh, this is hilarious. And I've actually found that it's one of those where, you lead them into feeling more comfortable with you. And then I've actually started telling them that I have hair and makeup artists that will do their hair and makeup. It's included in the session. And that makes a huge difference, because they don't have that, well, how do I do my hair and makeup?
Well, it's really tough. It's really tough, even with weddings and stuff. I think that one of the most underrated things is making people feel comfortable. We just had a wedding on Friday, and I had emailed with Jake, the groom, a lot, and the bride had we had talked online and stuff, but we show up in the middle of nowhere in Leavenworth. She's in her getting ready outfit, with all of her best friends. Her mom is there, and we show up, and it's a really intimate moment, right? And I have about 30 seconds to kind of get everything going, right, on a good foot. I mean, and it is really hard where, if you're doing engagement sessions or the boudoir, they're walking in and you got to go now, and everyone's got to be comfortable, or else it's just going to be, and it is on us to kind of do that. But it is, I think, really something that people don't think about or put enough priority on, I guess. I don't know. I think so.
Yeah, no, I definitely agree. It's kind of like you have that just teeny tiny period of time to walk in and go, hey, I'm here to be your photographer, your videographer, whatever. And I've actually found in my experience, if you show up and you've had just the worst day ever that you can imagine, and you haven't recentered yourself before you walk in, it's going to be a disaster. It's just gonna totally fall apart. So that's one of the things that I've really learned. And by doing the boudoir, that it's I have to be able to box everything. There's actually a YouTube video out there where the guy talks about how guys have boxes. And he talks about how there's actually a nothing box, and there's literally nothing in that box. But then there's a home box, and there's a work box, and there's another box. And however, the female brain doesn't work in boxes. It's all interconnected. So I've had to really practice to have my boxes and go, okay, this is what's happening at home. I'm not going to deal with that. This is what's happening here. I'm not going to deal with that. I am here for your wedding.
Yeah, see, I can't disconnect any of that. I think I have more of the female brain, because my head just swims all the time. So I don't know if I might be floating in the sea here.
Maybe I took your male brain, so maybe that's what happened here. And when I switched over, I was like, nope, sorry, Reed, you get mine now.
No, but I do get that, and I think even dealing with brides and grooms and stuff, when they're you just the grooms, you just sit here, you just wait. We're gonna come back to you and get ready to like, oh, okay. Like, I don't know, maybe other guys, I don't know if I just don't work that way, but
maybe, I don't know.
So talk about kind of like getting the business started up here. Was there any like challenges that you faced or like kind of things that you thought would be easier? Like you said, kind of getting clients and things, but talk about kind of that initial kind of, starting up here in Washington.
I think the biggest thing was I kind of expected that I was going to go, hey, guess what? I do photography, and everybody was going to be like, oh, hey, I'll hire you. And it really started out that I was shooting for free for family and friends. And the hardest part was the getting over people actually giving me money and getting over myself in a way that was like, I'm actually doing work here. I should be paid for it. I mean, you don't go work at McDonald's and expect them to just, oh yeah, until you're perfect at flipping burgers, you don't get to be paid. You got to work for us for months. So that was one of the biggest things, was really my own self-worth and trying to get over that hurdle, because I was always kind of one of those, I will pick my own work apart like nobody's business. However, I'll go through and I'll deliver something and people are like, oh my God, I absolutely love this. And I'm going, oh, okay, so it's just me. I think the hardest part in business is getting over you and your own insecurities and your own question of whether or not you're good enough. And once I finally got to the point where I was like, okay, I'm going to stop picking myself apart. And it was both on a personal and a professional level that I had to stop picking myself apart before anything actually like started to work for me. And so it was like, yeah, the getting the clients thing, as long as I was there and I was kind of like ragging on myself, it was impossible to find clients that were willing to hire me. But now that I've taken all that time and I've honed my craft, and I will admit there are some days that I walk in and I'm like, I have no idea what I'm doing, but I've gotten really good at winging it. And those are usually my most creative days. So they're nothing to be afraid of, but it's kind of one of those where you walk in and you got that deer in the headlights, like, oh no, what did I do? But once I stopped ragging on myself and stopped beating myself down, I was able to really hone my craft, and I was able to kind of break out of that shell that kept me closed off from everything. And now I'm finding it a lot easier to get those clients and to find the clients that actually fit in with me, and they don't run away.
It's hard though. I mean, I always struggle with, I'm like the biggest perfectionist, OCD in my own head, and Dorothy will be like, you're crazy, but like I can't, like once I deliver something, like I can't watch it for like 6 months. Like once it's kind of past like the statute of limitations, and I can go back and kind of like enjoy it again, because I'll always find something. And it is like once I do it, if I can get it delivered to the client, and then if I can get it like posted on whatever line, on Facebook or whatever, like if I can get past that, then I just kind of lock it away. Cause otherwise I'm like, I'm terrible. Right? Like I'm terrible. Like I'll go back. Like it has to be a really, really long time past until I can go back and kind of rewatch stuff.
Right. I had to get out of the habit of pulling things from the archive and like going, oh, I'm going to re-edit these. Cause I'd turn around and I'd start re-editing, and then I just get so upset that I was like, I can't believe I delivered that. But I have only had one client, which everybody always gets one client, that expectations were not quite on the same level for both myself and the client. And my client was one that I got hired 2 weeks before their wedding. So I didn't even have time to get to know anybody. But there's always one that they just sit in the back of your mind. You kind of wonder and go, oh, could I have done this differently? Could I have done this better? But it's like, it always seems like those are the ones that stick around the longest. So it is, I have to like keep myself from going back and pulling images from the archives and everything else and going, oh, I'm going to re-edit this. And I said, but I watch your work. Every time it pops up in the Seattle Wedding Network, I'm like, oh, hey, oh, I love this.
I just had because we always post like anniversary stuff, whatever. I just had one that I posted, and I was like, "Oh, that was way off." Like, and I had to go back and do it. I did have to fix it before because I'm like, "Oh, ooh, that," and like you would never, like, you know, Dorothy's always like, "Nobody would ever," and I'm like, "Yeah, but it's still like," especially when like,
but
yeah, and especially like for us, where like if you're on Photoshop or Final Cut or whatever, and like you can see like, oh, I got to change the whatever color by 2%, or like when you can like, when it's like, but like when it's a tangible thing versus like if you're looking at something and you're like, oh, that's, you know, maybe it's off, maybe it's not. But like, if you know, like, oh no, it's like a tangible percentage off. That's what always bothers me. Or like if the rotation's off by like 0.2 or something. And I'm like, oh no, I got to go fix that.
That's one of the other things that really helped push my business forward was actually having a network, because that reminds me that I have this nice tight-knit network of other photographers that I do work with on occasion. And I've had in the past year multiple times where it's like I'm looking at a gallery and I'm going, oh, something is just off on this. And so I'll literally take that gallery link and send it off to one of my other photographers and I'll go, can you look at this and tell me what's wrong with it? And usually if they can't pick up anything, it's just kind of one of those, I'm like, okay, I'm going to just ignore it and I'm going to send it off to the client. And the clients are 99.999% of the time like, oh my gosh, these are amazing. So I said, it helps having somebody just to go and go, hey, can you take a look at this really quick? And I said, I've had other photographers. I had one gal who sent me a whole gallery of photos. She goes, I think these are blown out. And I'm like, I currently work mechanical design. So I have a computer setup that has 4 different monitors in all different sizes and all different brands, because I mean, when you're doing mechanical design, it's not picky. But so I take it into my work computer and I pull it up on each and every monitor and screenshot it for her. So she could see that it's like, no, I think the monitor brightness that you have set is too high. So she lowered her monitor brightness and she goes, oh, okay, now they're perfect.
It's so funny, yeah, because I'll read in like forums and stuff where they say how you're supposed to like edit, like if you're editing on the machine, you should have like another brand plugged in, and then you should also like send it to your phone and somebody else before you, you know, deliver it. But then you also hear people that comment and they're like, you do realize like most people are watching this on their cell phones now, and like it doesn't matter,
right?
You know,
nobody
like,
cares.
Yeah, it doesn't matter. And so my thing is like, if it looks good to me, it looks good enough. I can't pass the sniff test like 4 other times. I can get through it once and then that'll be.
And see, that's what I do. I'm like, if it comes up and it looks great to me, shoot, I'm sending it off. I'm not going to try and like, you know, put it on my cell phone and everywhere else. Because the other thing I've found is with photos, a lot of it also depends on when you print them, who you print them through. Because I went through, my own wedding photos. I got those back. I printed photos at Costco. I think I got 1 or 2 at Walmart. And then I ordered a couple from my ProLab Millers. And I noticed that Walmart was blue because it's always blue. Costco was pretty much fine. But when I got them back from Miller's, it was super dark. And so it was kind of one of those, I'm like, oh, okay. So before I send these off, because it was a Halloween wedding, everything was shot super dark to begin with. And so there were a lot of spots. I mean, I've got a big old family photo that's like a 16 by 7 or something, because it's this really odd crop that I did. And you can see everybody except for Grandma, who had a hat on. So her face was shaded. So see, we even make mistakes.
Yeah, so I do want to talk about your wedding that was on the docket here, because this was awesome, and I saw photos and I heard, and I think, you know, especially where like, I think if somebody like in the community like gets married, where you like obviously like have a network of people, like it's like an event, right? Like people knowing, you know. So talk to me a little bit about your wedding and kind of what all happened with that, because it was fascinating.
So my wedding actually started out trying to be as cheap as possible because it was my second wedding, and I had a really big wedding the first time I got married, and I kind of went, yeah, I really don't want a big wedding, but it was my husband's first wedding. So he was like, no, I want to do this. He has a huge family. I mean, his parents are divorced. Well, his mom has not remarried, but his dad remarried, but his mom's boyfriend's been around for 16 years or something to that effect. So he's got kids, and then the stepmom has kids. And so we've got this huge family on his side. Whereas my brother and I were like, hey, it's just us. But it was really actually kind of fun because being that we're both so connected in the community and everything else, and my brother having married his high school sweetheart, they're super connected in the community. So it was basically one big, giant, happy family, and also half of Sumner. So we started trying to be as cheap as possible and ended up, we did all right, but every wedding is money. So we ended up having about 80 people, not including all of the random bystanders, because we got married in the middle of Main Street. Halloween, Main Street shuts down about 3:30, 4 o'clock, and it becomes a public park. So my sister-in-law went to the city of Sumner, to the mayor, because she happens to work on the Parks and Rec committee. She goes to the mayor and she goes, they want to get married in the middle of the street. What do we need to do? And the mayor basically went, well, it's a public park. And
because of Halloween.
Right. Because of Halloween.
Because of Halloween, they shut down the main street and make it a public park.
Yeah. Because they do a big street of treats at 5 o'clock in Sumner for all of the...
As you would, a street of treats.
I mean, right. Who wouldn't do a street of treats? But they do this big street of treats so that all of the kids can come and they can trick or treat safely, is basically the big idea. So all of the shops close down, they all bring out candy, and so it's kind of a safe haven for those with parents, because, you know, when we were kids, it was nothing to go knock on your neighbor's doors. And now it's like, I'm not sure. I mean, aside from my parents and the neighbor across the street who have been there forever, I don't know any of my neighbors. I definitely don't want my kids going and knocking on their doors. But yeah, so we ended up having like a flash mob wedding ceremony. Just everybody lined up in the middle of the street. It was kind of hilarious because our daughter's gymnastics coach happened to be walking by during the middle of the ceremony, and she's like, hey, I know them. And we had other people, like there were a whole bunch of just random bystanders that actually noticed what was going on and all kind of just joined in. And so we had this huge crowd. Everybody was in costume. It was actually kind of amazing. All of the shop owners had actually shut their doors early and come out, and they were all standing out along the street. So the city of Sumner actually, I think they tweeted it and they Instagrammed it, as well as the Sumner Police Department Instagrammed it, because they were all down there too. So it ended up being a really pretty awesome collaboration. I got to work with some amazing vendors, including my 2 photographers, and I had Seattle Bride Hair was my hair and makeup artist. Eternally Yours Events did my DJ, was DJ Ree. And then like the reception was just kind of a giant collaboration of all of my super creative and talented friends and family. They decorated using a hodgepodge of random decorations. Everybody brought Halloween decorations from their houses. I somehow managed to score like 35 white glittered pumpkins. So, and then we had just a tool, like beyond huge amounts of tool everywhere. So it was actually really kind of cool. It turned out pretty amazing, and said everybody really came together on the day of to make it was kind of magical.
Well, no, because we had talked, when I found out about the Halloween wedding, and I mean, I love Halloween weddings. I mean, that's still one of my favorite memories. Is we had one a couple years ago, and she was the same way as you. Like loved Halloween and a lot of family and friends, and decorations and all that stuff. And like, we ended up getting that featured a bunch of places. I mean, just because it's just such a cool, like, I think marrying of like your interests, and then kind of like, it's just out of the norm a little bit, I think is like really kind of neat. And especially even like for you as someone that like does a lot of different weddings, like, like when we got married, it's hard to like separate, what you do versus like what you want, and where this was like so specific to you. I just think that's really neat.
Yeah. I mean, it was actually pretty incredible. Because I said it was one of those where, I mean, I've photographed so many, the classic white wedding. And that's what, I mean, when I got married the first time, that's what I had too, it was pick your 2 colors, pick your wedding dress, pick your invitation style. And the invitation styles, they weren't as complex as they are now. Like now you can get handwritten, you can get laser jet, you can get fancy, like specially made paper for your invitations. Oh, ours were from like Michael's or something, because that's what you did at that point. And I was actually just talking to another gal the other day who we were talking about the fact that the trends have changed so much. And now weddings are just kind of they're not necessarily a free-for-all, but you can do whatever you want. There's not like all of those traditions that used to be, you can use them or you cannot use them. You get the choice. It's not hey, no, you have to do it this way. Here's your timeline. You have to do this. So it's actually really pretty cool. And I said every wedding has a snafu. My snafu was my dress.
What happened?
So I ordered my dress off of eBay, which just brides never do that. Just don't do it. It's dangerous. So I found this really pretty black dress on eBay. And it was a too good to be true moment. I ordered it, and it said that it was going to take 12 weeks to arrive. 12 weeks go by, and I contact the company, and they're, oh, yeah, no, it's in production. We're working on it. 4 more weeks go by, and at this point, it's the end of August, and I'm getting married at the end of October. And they're like, we'll ship it out this week. So dozens of emails later, I finally get the dress shipped. It finally shows up. And it's navy blue.
For a Halloween wedding.
For a Halloween wedding. It really reminded me of something that I would have worn if I was going to a military ball. Because it was definitely not black. And it was just it did not look anything like the dress that I was supposed to get. It was still pretty. But if you really don't want pointed Madonna boobs, it was not the dress for anybody. So I actually was on the Seattle Wedding and Event Network, and I posted in there that, hey, I got this dress. I want to figure out what I can do with it. And being super creative and kind of a DIY type person, I was like, I'm going to dye it myself. And all of the dress designers come back there, no, don't do it. I'm like, okay, fine. So one gal suggested a costume designer who's in downtown Tacoma. So I took this dress into them, literally wrapped up in a garbage bag because I was just that frustrated at the point.
Yeah, you were done.
I opened the garbage bag, flip it upside down, and just dumped this dress onto the floor. And Nara, the costume designer down there, she kind of looks at me and she goes, you're really, really not happy with this dress, are you? Nope. So she managed to take the dress, take it completely apart, dye it black, and then put it back together as just one of those giant ball skirts. And I said, I know there's a company out there called Mr. Pretty that makes these giant ball skirts, and that's exactly what it reminded me of when she was finished. Like, when she was finished, it was absolutely amazing. And then I ordered a shirt off of Amazon, and that became my dress for the day, which I will say 2-piece dresses are amazing because you don't have to take the entire thing off to pee, and you don't have to have 4 friends in there holding all that tulle up either. You just unclip it, step out, and you're good.
It's so funny. It's I would tell you, I've never heard of a single person ordering a dress like on like the cheapo sites or whatever, and like having it work out. I mean,
right?
Like eBay, I think is a little more hit or miss, but like, yeah, like brides take heed of that. Dorothy's friend was getting married. We shot her video years ago, and she money is not a thing. And she's like, oh, I'm looking, and I can get this dress from China for like $250 or whatever.
Right.
And we're like, absolutely not. Like, absolutely not. And she's like, no,
I
really think, and it really was like, they ended up not. And I can't remember where she got her dress from. I know it was local, but it was a struggle to like get her to not. And I was like, of anything you're going to save money,
right.
Try to get it, whatever. So I'm glad that worked out for you.
Yes.
It's definitely not a good moment to have.
Oh, no. And especially, I mean, the one real bummer for me was the fact that we searched, and I had my vendors, like, we were all searching for black dresses, and we searched and searched and searched. And so it basically hit June, and I was like, I have to order something. I don't have a choice anymore. And then as soon as I order my dress and as soon as I get it back and my wedding is already done, like 4 designers came out with all black lines. I'm like, why? Why, guys? Like, this is not fair.
Yeah, I guess I didn't realize, because people every once in a while, if someone posts about like Halloween weddings, I'll still share the one that we did. I don't watch it because I can't watch my work, but I'll send it.
I'll watch it for you.
Yeah, I'll send it. And people always say, oh, I love her dress. I love her dress. Because she did have, it was like black and it had like spike kind of thing, and like, of course, I mean, it was like cool, it was awesome. It was definitely like a Halloween, when you think of like a Halloween dress, that this is definitely but I didn't realize, I guess, that it was such a rarity to find. But now maybe it's going to be on trend.
I think now it's going to be on trend, and I'm not going to say that I'm taking credit for that, because that was not me. Mine was definitely, it was a struggle, but I'm not the one who decided on black wedding dress. I think it was actually Vogue that came out with this whole thing on black wedding dresses. But I said, it's actually one of my favorite things is seeing some of the new trends come up. And there's a designer out of Seattle. Oh my goodness. I photographed her a couple of years ago, actually, that she does these incredible dip dyed dresses. And
I know what you're talking about.
Yeah, I think it's Chrissy is her first name. I cannot pronounce her last name.
That's okay.
I would be terrible. But she does these gorgeous dip dyed dresses. And I said that I was looking at one of those for a while. And then I was like, oh, but I really wanted all black. I just kind of wanted to go polar opposite of my first wedding, which was, white and purple and blue.
That's funny. Besides, obviously the dress snafu, was there lessons, things that you've learned now that you're going to be able to kind of incorporate into when you're, helping couples now plan weddings and, do their photography and everything? Oh, yeah.
Everybody's going to have an opinion. That does not mean you have to take it. You can easily, politely go, oh, that sounds great, and nod, and then go do whatever you wanted to do to begin with. I said that was kind of one of those things that as we were going, it was like everybody kind of went, well, what if we do this? Well, what if we do this? Well, what if we do this? And me and my friend group, we're a bunch of strong-willed women, a bunch of strong-willed women. So, of course, every single one of them had an opinion on how we were going to do things. And it was just, I kind of, at the end, just threw my hands up and went, nope, not happening. Just here's what's going on. And even though like coordination and stuff is kind of a huge expense for a lot of people, consider having a day of coordinator. I was gifted one because she happens to be related to my husband. So she actually came in and it was a complete blessing. There were a couple of things where it was like I was getting phone calls from the DJ who wanted to know how to do this. And I was getting phone calls from other people who wanted to know this. And I just kind of went, okay, here's my phone, Leah. Please, by all means, just go. And so she was able to go and field all of those questions and work all of that out. So I didn't have all that stress. I just kind of got to, hang out and do my own thing. And I mean, the giant bottle of Corona helped. So it was totally worth it. And being able to, even if you can just move a few things around in your budget, get that day of coordinator is a great thing.
Yeah, it's crazy. And I've talked before about, I have a big questionnaire and stuff that I send out or whatever, but it is always interesting to me. Like, we just had a wedding where, like, how many vendors like still have a lot of questions, like, at the day,
right?
Like, where should this napkin go, or how do you want the cake thing going? And I'm like, this is all stuff. And, like, if you have a coordinator, they can kind of help answer some of that. But I was sitting there at this wedding and I was like, I can't believe, like, these are still the questions we're asking. Like, we're setting up the reception. Like, how did we not know? It's just always funny to me because I always try to, like, not have to ask anything, right? Like, I want to, like, we're just hanging out and, like, I might be asking, like, other people, but I'm not going to be asking, like, the bride or groom or whatever. But it was just a thought that I had at this last wedding of, like, wow, like, I can't believe we're still thinking about this stuff right now.
Yeah.
This isn't,
I said, for me, the only questions I usually ask during the day are, do you have a preference for where you want to do your first look?
Yes.
If you're doing one. And where are all of your accessories hidden from me? Because I always tell them, I'm like, make sure you put all of your if you bring your invitation, if you have your ring boxes, your shoes, all of that stuff that you want those detail shots of, have it all in one spot. Nobody ever puts it in a spot that I can find it. They're like, oh yeah, I have it all over in this random bag over here in the corner behind the TV that you.
Yeah, no, it's never. It's
never right
all
where
my shoes are in the box in the bag in my car, and you're like, wow, like, okay.
Yeah, and those are usually the only two questions that I will ask, unless there's something super specific that I'm asking about. Like, if we're doing family formals, I might say, okay, was there anybody else that you wanted photos with? But I said, some of the stuff that is just like, oh yeah, where do we want this? And I said, I'm super, like, I'm really picky, but I don't necessarily want to do it myself. So having that day of coordinator, she came in and she was like, okay, well, how do you want the tables set up? And I literally looked at her and I went, there's the pile of stuff. I trust your vision. And she kind of went, are you serious? I'm like, yes, I'm serious. Here's the pile. I trust your vision. You do what you do best. And here's my original inspiration photo. And she kind of went, okay. And they just went all out. And, like, by the time it was done, I said, we got our reception down at the McMillan Grange, and walking in there before everything was set up, you would not have recognized it once it was finished. And it was just like, it was amazing. And being able to just kind of go, here, take it, was really wonderful because, I mean, I was already running back and forth and trying to get all of these other things. And then my husband love him to death, but he's one of those where I realize he's just trying to please me, but I'm kind of like, I just asked you to do it, just do it. So he's all over there going, oh, do you want these lights just a little bit higher? I can put them right here, or I can put them right here. And I'm like, honey, just put them up there. I don't even care right now. Just make sure I'm not going to hit my head on them, okay?
That's awesome. So to kind of wrap up here, moving forward, kind of, goals and aspirations you have, you're talking about, you kind of want to start scaling more to full-time photography now, right?
Yes.
So talk about kind of what the next year or two looks like for you ideally.
So the next year or two for me is going to basically revolve around, I want a minimum of 24 weddings, at least 2 per month. Obviously, with wedding season, they'll likely all end up, May, June, July. But I want to move into where I'm shooting weddings, not necessarily every weekend, because I still need some weekends with my kids for camping and that sort of thing. But you would not believe how many campsites are around most of these wedding venues.
That is the thing I've noticed lately is like the ones that we do out. It is like they'll like plan a whole weekend.
Oh yeah.
Like with the kids and stuff.
I actually did that. My worst weekend was one of those weekends, but it ended up, I had my tires rotated and the guy who rotated them did not put them all the way back on the car. So in between the campsite and the wedding venue, my whole car started shaking. and it ended up, it destroyed my tires and my rims. And so, I mean, I got a whole new set of shoes for my car there. but yeah, I actually really love being able to look at the campsites and go, okay, we're going to go camping. And in the middle of this, mommy's going to go shoot a wedding. And then we're going to come back and finish camping. So, but I really want to kind of branch out a little bit and shoot a little more over towards the peninsula area, because there are some incredible wedding venues over there. And then get up here in Seattle a little bit more. I do a lot of weddings like down in Sumner, Buckley, Tacoma area. So moving north would be fantastic. And then filling in with boudoir sessions. And honestly, if I could convince every bride to come in and have a boudoir session before her big day, that would be fantastic. I would almost rather shoot your boudoir session than your engagement session. Like, because let's be realistic, your husband probably doesn't care one way or another how the photographer works, but you are going to be the one that it's like, I have to impress you. I don't have to impress him. He'll be impressed anyway. I got a camera.
That's awesome. And yeah, and just speaking of the wedding season, I know in Seattle, we just had December 21st, best wedding we had all year. So let's talk, you know, I mean, just brides here and grooms, and let's talk about extending the season. Because I just emailed it to her an hour ago, best wedding of the year. And it was, I mean, it was really cold.
Oh, yeah.
But, you know, we got married inside. We just had to go outside for pictures. But, you know, you can tough it out. She had snow boots on. So.
Oh, yeah. Wear those snow boots. I actually had on my photography shoot boots underneath my wedding dress, because I was like, we went out in the middle of a cornfield. Okay. I was not wearing my high heels in a cornfield.
Yes. It's okay to have your picture shoes.
Yeah.
You can have boots. You can have
those.
Okay.
And I said, you can always, you can have the cute little shoes for walking down the aisle and whatever, but definitely. And don't be afraid to keep the mud boots on afterwards, because they're so much more comfortable.
Yes. And also she drug her dress everywhere.
Oh yeah.
I was amazed, because I've had brides want to carry their dress on the carpet, but she drug it. We were walking down to the lake through the logs.
I'm telling you,
just walking.
Get that thing dirty, because for most of us, we wear it once. We get to wear it once. Wear it to its full potential. Get it dirty. I'm not saying get down and roll around in the mud unless that's something you really want to do. I'll photograph that. It wouldn't be the first time. I actually shot motocross for a while, so my camera's gotten dirty. But yeah, I mean, get that thing dirty, drag it around. You'll get some of the best photos, like just kind of going out and doing your thing. I had, of course, you know, mom, grandma, stepmom, and mother-in-law that are all like, oh, pick your dress up. And I'm going, why? It's going to be dirty and need dry clean by the time we're done anyway. So
it was really refreshing to just be able to focus on like the photography and video, and not like, oh no, is it going to get, you know, because if you want to keep your dress clean, I mean, you know, obviously we want to prioritize what the couple wants, but like it was just nice to not have to like worry about that, and to be able to worry about the other stuff. And it made it a lot easier to kind of get the photos we needed, as opposed to like, oh, we need to like drape out a blanket that you can stand on, and we need to cover everything, and we need to make sure that the ground is dry, and so.
I know how that goes. But yeah, December weddings are they're actually they have their own magic.
Yes.
Honestly. I did not get one this year, but both in 2017 and 2016, I shot a wedding on December 22nd. They were small courthouse weddings, but even the courthouse weddings, it was just like, they were super magical, and just kind of, because you not only get the like lovey-doveyness of the wedding, but it's 2 days before Christmas, people. Everything is magic from November to January. It just is. So that was super fun. And I said the one in 2017 actually went back to his mom's house, and she had decorated everything for Christmas. So that was super fun. I basically got to go hang out and party with these people.
That's awesome. Well, thank you so much for coming in.
Yeah.
I appreciate you taking the time. Like I said, again, you know, we're a couple days before the New Year's and things are busy. If people want to learn more about you, your photography, both weddings and boudoir, portraits, other things, what would you have them check out?
I would definitely find me on Facebook. It's facebook.com/MJPLLC. That will get you to my main page. I believe that both of my websites are listed up there, but you can go to markiejonesphotography.com or Markie Jones Weddings, and it's MARKIE. So when you go to look for me, it's super simple spelling. And you can also find me on Instagram. I have Instagram is Markie Jones Photography LLC, or Give Me a Wink Boudoir.
Perfect. Well, thank you so much for coming in. This has been another episode of Get to Know Your Wedding Pro. Check back next week for another wedding vendor interview. Thanks so much.
Thanks.